皆さん、皆さん、こんにちは。私たちはグループ1です。私はミカです。フィリピンの University of the Philippines Los Bañosから来ました。
私はニディです。ジョージアテックアメリカのジョージアテック大学から来ました。
こんにちは。私はジェンです。アメリカの、ワシントン大学から来ました。
こんにちは。私はマックスです。アメリカの University of Nebraska 大学から来ました。
よろしくお願いします。本日のプレゼンテーションは the final presentation for the Kobe University Inter-University Exchange Project and Internship Program. So for our presentation outline, we actually identified 4 global issues that are related to our learning experiences through the internships and our proposed solutions to address those issues. So the first global issue is on climate change affecting agriculture. So I was able to attend the internship at Marianagi Foods Incorporated, where we learned about the production of steamed beans, boiled beans, and seaweed kelp. We were also able to experience working at the Kobe University farm, where we worked at the rice fields, grape and pear farms, and learned about raising cattle for Kobe beef. So from these experiences, we actually learned that one of the biggest, if not the biggest, challenge that the agriculture industry is facing right now, not only in Japan, but also in the world, is climate change. More specifically, the rising local and global temperatures, as well as the more intense and frequent weather events like droughts and heavy rains and typhoons. So we identified 3 main challenges in the agriculture industry. First one is the reduced crop yields and quality. For example, at Marianagi, they said that the harvesting and the drying of the seaweed or the kombu that they make has been very hard because of the unpredictable weather during the summertime. So our proposed solution for this is to develop crop varieties that are more resilient to high temperatures and to drought and flooded conditions. Another challenge that we saw was that pests and diseases now are more resistant to the natural and the chemical pesticides that they use at the farms. We saw this in both in Marianagi and in the KU farm, and we are recommending to solve this by using integrated pest management. It can consist of various of practices. It can include like natural control, wherein we use like natural pathogens or predators to control the pests. We can also use like physical control, wherein we can put like chimps and barriers for the pests. We can also do regulated monitoring of the pest levels and acting only when the pest levels are at a certain level that it causes economic harm, rather than applying treatment by schedule at the farms. And lastly, we also saw at the KU farm through the cattle that livestock are subjected to several stresses due to climate change. And this can affect their health, their growth, and also the quality of the product that we get from them. For example, the meat. So for this, our proposed solution would be to improve breeding and focus on breeding livestock that are more heat tolerant, and also improving the nutrition practices through supplemental nutrition and cultivating forage crops that are more drought resistant. That's all for climate change affecting agriculture.
Okay, so my portion of the project focused on comparing environmental responsibility between Japan and the United States. And so I took the focus from the Sona internship, KU farm, Marianagi, and then a little bit of inspiration from others. And so starting off, I wanted to focus on use of AI and technology in agriculture. When we had our experience at KU Farm, we were able to see how they use drones, how they're using more advanced machinery, including things to drive or farm rice paddy fields. And so I was able to look at the ways we farm back in the United States. Me personally, I've worked on the farm a few times at my university, I've conducted research, so I was able to draw interesting comparisons between the way we work and the way things work in Japan. And so one of the biggest things that I noticed was that Japan has featured, at least at KU Farm, a lot more automation. So things like water sensors in the fields. And we even use this kind of higher tech, I would say, vision setup, where we had collaboration with somebody that was within a building. We were out in the field farming, so they were telling us we could pick this crop or do this thing. Back home, we're not as developed yet. Even in some places, there's not water sensing technologies like used at Kobe University. So I thought that was very interesting to see the advancement and difference in technology. Additionally, there is a lot more commitment to sustainability goals, SDGs, Japan as opposed to the United States. At least where I'm from, in Nebraska, the United States is very big, so I'll be comparing the Midwest for this portion. But wherever you go, Japan, at least the places I've been, there's been some recycling bins dedicated to plastics or metal bottles. Sometimes they can be hard to find, but they're there. At least where I'm from, the United States, these aren't as common. There's trash cans everywhere, but not as much opportunity to recycle. There used to be a program when I was a child where you could recycle, but that is no longer the case. So coming to Japan and seeing that be so commonplace is really interesting to me. So I deeply appreciated seeing that, the implementation of recycling practices in Japan. And I believe that also really shows commitment to environmental stewardship. And then next, some problems that all our societies face. This is international, but again, taking a focus on United States and Japan. So the first one that I noticed was we were at the Mayanagi internship, we were at a factory tour, we were learning about kombu production. And so there was a discussion about seaweed, how it's grown, when does it harvest, how long can it stay stored? And we brought up the idea that it's harder to farm seaweed recently because of warming ocean waters. And so I noted that this impact of global warming is affecting industry here in Japan, but it's also affecting industries back home. Seaweed production back home, crop production, animal production, and global warming will impact agriculture. So being able to observe that in the Japanese context was really interesting to me. And I couldn't understand before I came to the internship how that would directly affect Japan in such a specific manner. Next is the idea of going back to recycling with litter being so common in America. So wherever you go, and this is a pretty commonplace throughout the states, there will be trash on the ground, in the water, in the grass. It's very common. It's honestly more natural than seeing a clean place. And so coming to Japan, I was shocked. It's like, wow, this place is very clean. People take care of themselves. Even with little trash cans around, people still care about the environment and show a lot of responsibility in that sense. And so whatever internship we went to, there was dedication to recycling food, recycling resources. At the QB internship, there was a whole assembly line for recycling used products, waste products, and got into a nice discussion about some ways they wish to improve, but some ways they're meeting SDGs. And these SDGs are common for many businesses to try to reach. And so seeing that so commonplace is something I wish we could implement more in the United States. Definitely something to draw inspiration from back home. And maybe we can start in Nebraska. And then lastly, I would say one thing I noticed is that while there is a lot of use of recycling in Japan, I did some research and found that not all of the plastics that are taken up are eventually recycled. Many of them end up going to landfill anyways. This is very similar back home. If we do have a recycling program, it's not very efficient. It's very rare for us to have a good recycling program in the first place. So seeing this showed a little bit of similarity between us and Japan in the sense that Japan can take the first steps to recycling, we take them, but the job isn't always finished. And so pretty soon I'll be introducing a country which does a really good job at completing the whole process and closing resource loops. But I wanted to flash back to the first few points I mentioned before I get there. And so this would be that globally, the animal and marine plant populations are declining due to global warming and other factors such as pollution, as I mentioned. So these are shared throughout the world. And then additionally, that litter and pollution will exacerbate these problems. So maybe not as common in Japan. You can consider air pollution as an issue, especially in places like Tokyo, congested cities. But New York City in the States or California often feature the same problem. So this is very shared, especially amongst bigger cities in certain countries. So what are some solutions to the many problems that I presented? These are huge issues. Creating a recycling system in the United States seems to be a problem. So I believe we can learn from Japan to do that. But first, I will mention that Japan and America can take inspiration from other countries. I'd like to mention Germany, for example. So before I get into the direct contents on the slide, I'd like to mention my time at the summer internship. When we went to the 2025 Osaka World Expo, We toured a few facilities, and fortunately we got to see Germany. So Germany focused on renewable energy, recycling, closing feedback loops, just providing a more clear, practical sense of what a green future would look like in a country that's already doing green things. And so they are a world leader in recycling, managing waste, and moving forward this aspect. And so as far as Japan taking inspiration, I would mention making waste management maybe a bit more accessible, but also implementing practices that end up closing the feedback loop. So when recycling gets to the end stage, it's actually fully recycled instead of being thrown away anyways. And then in the United States, we can go the whole way and actually implement a fully functional system. But then focusing specifically on America, we can make this more accessible, we can reduce practices or at least encourage culture that says, hey, don't pollute, don't leave your trash everywhere, don't litter. While we say this, I don't believe it's fully taken to heart in the United States in comparison to Japan. Even things like being considerate of what you're buying, so that way you know you can throw it away in the United States isn't something that we do. So when I came to Japan, I would buy water bottles, water, I drink a lot of water. I would buy so much. And then I'd have my bag full of water bottles. I'm like, well, where can I throw this away? I didn't think about buying this or what to do before I bought it. So that's just something that I feel that we need in our culture. And so then moving to Germany, I believe they're a great model for environmental responsibility. As I mentioned, some of the things I saw episode were how they're focusing on a practical future for green energy. So making SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, that they can be reached in a timely manner, instead of somewhere like the United States saying, oh, we'll reach net zero carbon by 2030, it's already 2025 with little to no progress. I believe it was since 1990 we've made a 12% decrease in carbon emissions in the United States. Germany has made substantially more. I can't remember the number, but it was over 30%. So looking at that, it made me feel a little discouraged that in the United States, we don't take this to heart. But Japan has done a really good job of reducing carbon emissions as well. And so it amazes me when I see a city like Kobe, Osaka, Tokyo, and I imagine how they drastically drop carbon emissions. But then I look at somewhere like Nebraska, we have a pretty big city in Omaha, and we haven't really dropped carbon emissions, but we have so much going on. So just comparing those was really interesting for me. I'd say one of my biggest takeaways during this experience, and observing Germany at the Osaka Expo or staying in Japan for 6 weeks and living in the United States, comparing all those really allowed me to grasp an understanding of what environmental stewardship could look like, should look like, and does look like in certain countries.
I'll be talking about our third global issue, the improvement of cross-cultural awareness, 多文化共生の進歩. And I had the opportunity to do an internship with the Kobe City Government International Relations. I had different learning experiences. One was to deepen the relationship with sister cities, 姉妹都市との関係を深める. Maintaining friendly international relationships, 友好的な国際関係の維持 and global cooperation, 国際的な協力. So for me, cross-cultural awareness is becoming more increasingly important in today's interconnected but also politically divided world. But it's through the internship with Kobe City government that I was able to help research ways to deepen ties with one of Kobe's sister cities. And I learned that Kobe has many sister cities around the world. And it just showed me how dedicated they are to connecting with all kinds of societies. The work emphasized the importance of maintaining friendly international relations and promoting global cooperation through grassroots diplomacy on a not only city government level, but university and community level. And Asana Awachishi, we worked with students from Japan, Canada, the United Kingdom, and other countries to develop proposals for reusing the legacy pavilions from the upcoming Osaka Expo that Marcus had previously mentioned. So 世界中の学生と協力して、レガシーパビリオンの提案を作成。And then we also learned in the process how diverse perspectives can lead to creative solutions, especially when addressing the unique and local challenges of Awajishi. 淡路島等級の課題やニーズについて学び、創造的な解決策を見出した。But despite these positive examples, challenges still remain, and there's often a lack of awareness among young people and rising geopolitical tensions that limit the opportunities for exchange. So to address this, we believe in the power of internships like the one that we are doing this summer, cultural exchange programs, and international collaborations as tools to foster understanding and build long-term global relationships. And over here we have the lack of awareness of the issues, the increased political tensions mentioned, and the proposed solutions, which is grassroots diplomacy through the city government level and community level, and then the internships and exchanges.
All right, we've come to the last global issue we want to mention, which is food scarcity. A common theme of the different internships we went on is different internships having different problems that they want to address. And the internships I want to discuss specific to this global issue is the QP Corporation, as well as I had the privilege of interning at Suzette, which is a confections company under Henry Carpenter. Specifically at QP Mayo, we went through a lot of different processes to understand how food is produced in general, whether that's through the manufacturing plant, we did a production tour, we even made our own mayo. So we got to see the food and processes needed and the work needed in order to complete that, as well as trying to look at it from an international lens by seeing in each of our respective nations what type of food is popular, how exactly can that be purchased, and why food scarcity is a big issue. And then going on into Suzette, we did similar things, but focused also on marketing strategy, on ways people are aware of food, how they can access it in the first place, and why different countries prioritize different things and ingredients in their food, as well as just doing field research here in Japan on how it is marketed and how it's approached. And that leads into our challenges and proposed solutions. The first one is, of course, food waste. Marcus touched on this in his slides, but specifically in supply chains, there's different processes, and in each process, some of the food is either scrapped or not used in the next step because of efficiency and for increased production. However, in other countries, specifically the United States, they don't really value that waste or do anything with it, while on the other hand, QP uses the shells from the eggs they crack in their mayo into like wallpaper or even for like medicinal purposes and different production things, which again is using that waste for future purposes. And also in Suzette, whatever bakery products aren't sold at that time, they can be crushed up into new bakery material to also be sold for other things. So reusing that scrap material and investing in processes that prioritize that is extremely important. Next is, of course, rising food prices because of the climate we live in and also the political conflicts between geopolitical regions. Sometimes importing food or even exporting it and resources aren't necessarily available in different countries. Japan does a good job of making food on a large scale automated process. As we saw in QP, they have factory production and miles of different processes within each specific department, as well as Suzette doing the exact same thing. So having an automated facility is important to cut down labor supply costs and also keep food accessible and affordable to those who can't access it. And lastly, a common theme of each of our internships is that we were educated and learned these processes on food scarcity and different global issues. If we don't continue internships like this, if we don't keep educating the youth and realizing that they are the future and the reason why these global issues exist, but also how they can be solved, then there will be no change, the conversation will die, and we need to, as Marcus said, cut the feedback where it starts. So having training programs like this, having students have hands-on experience, that is the first step so we can bring it back to America, to the Philippines, and multiple different nations to create a global effort of solving these global issues.
To summarize, we touched on 4 key global issues. climate change's impact on agriculture, environmental responsibility, cross-cultural awareness, and food scarcity. At Marianagi and Kobe University Farm, we saw how climate change affects crop yields and livestock, and proposed solutions like resilient crops and better breeding practices. And we compared Japan and the US, noting Japan's stronger sustainability efforts, and suggested that both Japan and the US learn from global models like Germany's. And then through the experiences at Kobe City government and Persona, we learned the importance of cultural exchange in building global cooperation, especially amid current geopolitical tensions. And lastly, at QB and Suzette, we explored food production and marketing, identifying food waste, high costs, and lack of education as barriers, which are solvable through innovation, automation, and student training programs, as mentioned. Thank you so much.
ありがとうございます。
Was right on presentation. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand.
And you guys could change anything about the program, or would you guys want it to be longer, or like change anything about that?
It's a great question.
If you wish, I don't. Should I just enunciate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so before I came to Japan, I had minimal. This is okay, enough. Okay, so before I came to Japan, I had almost no knowledge of Japanese. We learned hiragana and katakana online for about 2 months. And so I did my personal education by myself, learning through that's called wanikani and tofugu. And they helped quite a bit, but they really, more than anything, taught me random kanji, so I could like identify haku or sui. But I didn't know the difference between onyomi and kunyomi. I couldn't really talk to people. So that was a little difficult for me as a complete beginner. So when I got here, of course, Americans see culture shock, like, oh my gosh, this isn't America. And that was definitely, except I couldn't really get around. Thankfully, I had Phil there with me. He can speak Filipino more than me, kind of. So I think if there's one thing I would recommend or appreciate to see for future students is maybe like an online course of basic Japanese. So like say, Doko desu ka? Where is this? Or how can I do this? Or can you help me? I have questions, just basic keywords would be really helpful. That said, coming here and learning for the 2 weeks of Japanese was great. I felt that I could start to actually talk to people, at least be a little annoying when I ask them where to go, so they can understand me, instead of being like. So I think the language classes here are great. If there was a way we could get just a preview of that online, I'd love to see that too for the future students. But other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed my experience. I learned way more than I could have ever expected in 6 weeks, and I'm definitely gonna come back. I'm happy to say like Kobe is my home in Japan. During the time I've been.
Thank you. I'd like to add to that. I thought about this a lot being here in Japan. And first I want to say thank you to our senseis. It really, really helped us like be accustomed for someone who, doesn't speak anything really in Japanese. I also, if there's a way to make this internship longer, I think we can all agree that we would want to be here longer and see the fruits of what we started in each company come into fruition. We presented a lot of strategies and different ideas to these companies, but having an impact in each of the forces of the different legislation or even practices that these companies do, I think would be such an eye-opening process. Even though if we just introduce it in a small sense, seeing some sort of steps or helping implement that, I think would be extremely valuable to us that we can take back because we can see how this implementation actually works. But again, it's not really feasible. We understand like for a longer program, that's just what I was thinking.
So we received one question from Taylor-san. UW. Hi, Tara. Thank you for your question.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to
Yes,
know
go
like what
ahead.
is your yeah, what was your favorite part of the internship portion of the program?
I really enjoy different aspects of each internship program. I really enjoyed doing the factory tour with QB, seeing firsthand their efforts to automating and their recycling efforts. And the hands-on mayonnaise making experience just to really also get in touch with the root of what goes into making a healthy product. Seeing their commitment to creating a healthy society through the way, just even the way that they make the mayonnaise that's different from the United States and elsewhere around the world. At the Kobe University farm, I really enjoyed being hands-on with helping with the rice fields and picking the fruits, as well as feeding the cattle and really connecting with them on an interpersonal level. Since that's something that we as youth are usually far removed from because we're just used to interacting with produce agriculture at the storefront level. We don't go to the root cause of the issues and we don't get to ask the farmers their thoughts and opinions and what they think will lead to a sustainable future. So I think it was just with all the internships really valuable insight to ask the professionals the questions and getting their immediate responses. That is what I really enjoy about the internships.
Oh, really? We can check.
The question was curious, what was the most unexpected / new findings through this experience?
I can take it. Yeah. I would say there was a lot of unexpected things for me. I would just briefly name a few small ones and get to the big one. So when I got here, the train was pleasantly a surprise. I was very happy. People were ordered, like very respectful. There wasn't people on the phone. That's very common back home. So it was a peaceful experience to be able to get from one place to another on back home. That's not a thing. So that was really nice. Being able to also see that the food quality was really high here. People care about what they care about their body. You can see it in like what people walk, people talk, people serve food, people eat. There's a lot of respect. So those are some things that I wish we implemented at home. I was very happy to see those. But I would say the most unexpected thing for me was meeting all of the different people who was genuinely building deep rich connections in such a short period of time. All gets considered 6 weeks is fast. As I get older, I learned that time leaves faster and faster. So being able to slow down people from Japan, China, Korea, India, or Oman, people from the states that I haven't been, you grow legitimately international experience is amazing. I have a friend in Korea now who's gonna send me a shirt from South Korea. How cool is that? Because I met her here during the 2-week program. I was also able to make friends in Japan that I would travel with to Kyoto, or Nara, and I learned about people from Stanford. So making connections with people to such a deep extent while being able to go to all these internship sites, stay busy, and truly work on my future while building friends is an experience I wouldn't have expected to have in a country where I couldn't even speak the language. So I thought that was amazing. I'm very appreciative.
Well, I can another question.
Just one last question in the chat. I'm gonna read it first. Tell us your initial ideas for taking this passion back to the US or to the Philippines and to our campuses to get other students involved in these issues. So for me, I think for the Philippine context, we are like Japan, we're also a very agricultural country. So through the Kobe University farm internship, we realized that agriculture here in Japan is very advanced. We you use like smart technology and are very research heavy. You put importance on researching. And I think in the Philippines, we do research, but it doesn't reach the farmers. And I think that's the biggest issue that we have to overcome. And if I ever go back to the Philippines, I think that's the thing that I'm going to be imparting to the fellow students back home.
Okay. Thank you for your question. So let's move on to the second presentation.
Also have that. That's mine.
皆さん、おはようございます。私たちは、グループ2です。Today we will be presenting about the global issues that we learned about through our internship programs and also some solutions that we think would be helpful to be spread throughout the world. Just a little bit of an introduction about us. 私はエミリーです。ジョージアテクの大学から来ました。私の専攻は環境科学です。So I am very interested in sustainability and the environmental issues that we are facing as a society right now.
私は DC で、カナダのワイステン大学を出ました。専攻は社会学で、今日は話している課題は、健康の課題です。
こんにちは。私はジェリーと申しますと、私は林県大学のから来ました。専攻は教育です。And today I'm gonna mainly talk about like education through younger generations and the issues that match them together.
Yeah, so first I wanted to discuss sustainability. Our other group mentioned sustainability a lot, which I really enjoyed as an environmental science major. So coming to Japan, the main thing that I was excited to learn in this program was about Japanese sustainability initiatives, because in comparison to the US, Japan is doing so much more in terms of sustainability. The US Sustainable Development Goals score is at like a 75, and Japan is at an 80, and those 5 points make a world of difference. And so I was really excited to come to Japan and learn about all the creative and meaningful solutions to climate issues that have been started in this society, whether it be with carbon emissions, food waste, or ecological diversity. I really like that Japan has focused on all of these things. They're not just making progress in one sector. With ecological diversity, this is something kind of random, but it was really exciting for me. I attended a lecture about entomology, or the study of insects in Japan. And in the US, people are very afraid of insects. That's not something that people are interested in or want to talk about or want to acknowledge that insects are going extinct as well. So it was very refreshing to come to Japan and see all of this information available about insects. I went to the Itami insectarium nearby, and it was amazing. So that was something that I was very excited to learn about, as well as carbon emissions. Even with public transport being so widely available, that is such a drastic difference from the US, and it really does make a difference with carbon emissions. And food waste, all of the internships that we attended here mentioned something about food waste, whether it be with composting, being mindful with your consumption. One thing I noticed here in Japan is that leftovers are not very common. People clean their plates, and they make sure that when they're taking their food, they don't take too much. They take exactly what they know they can eat. And that is something that we really need to focus on in the US. So in terms of agriculture and the environment, two internships that I want to focus on are the Kobe University farm, which was by far my favorite. I loved going to the farm. While we were at the farm, we learned about lots of solutions to agricultural issues that are occurring right now. They were very sustainable in all of their agricultural activities. We were very mindful about not leaving any cow feed to be wasted. We made sure that it went back into the cow pen if we dropped it on the floor. We were very, very mindful about composting because we wanted to make sure that all of the food waste was actually taken care of correctly. The compost thing was actually really interesting to me because in the US, composting and recycling, that is something that we're trying to do, but the guidelines about how to do that are very vague. So at the farm, we spent a lot of time learning about how to separate different wastes. And that was really interesting to me because in the US, we really don't tell people how to separate waste. And then we're disappointed when our recycling system fails, but that's because we haven't set up a system where people can actually learn how to do it correctly. So that was really, really refreshing on the farm to learn so much about compost. And with the Pasona internship at Awaji Island, we also learned about agrotourism, which is something that I think is often overlooked in the realm of how to take care of environmental issues because people have to learn about the issues first before they can try to make a difference. And so at Pasona, what they did is they had a little mini tour where we were able to go pick vegetables and learn about the compost and like touch it, see it, smell it, all of that good stuff. And I think that was very important because for a lot of us, we haven't had that experience where you have your hands in the dirt, you're harvesting the vegetables, you're smelling the compost. Like that was a new experience for a lot of us. And I think that's very, very important because it gets back to the root of environmental issues. So people actually know that these issues are so complicated. There's not one simple solution, and we all need to work together to try to fix these issues. Similarly with recycling, I mentioned about how the recycling system in the US is not great, and how we don't give people the correct explanation of how to separate recycling, especially in companies like production. Coca-Cola, for example, is headquartered in Atlanta, where my university is, and Coca-Cola is, I believe, the #1 producer of plastic bottles in the world right now. And they are not making any sort of strides to recycle, to really make a dent in the waste that they're producing. And at CUPE, that is the exact opposite. So when they are making the bottles here, they keep the bottle fully enclosed before they fill it with mayo so that it's sterile on the inside. That means that at the top, there's a little clear plastic part that needs to be cut off before they can fill it with mayo. And something that I asked was, what do you do with the plastic part that you cut off? And immediately they had an answer. Oh, hello. Immediately they had an answer. They use that part of the bottle to make benches, which I thought was such an interesting and eloquent solution. It doesn't have to be something special where oh, we figured out bacteria can break down plastic. No, it doesn't need to be something so complex. It can be something as easy as making benches, and that will make an impact in terms of environmental issues. So that was very refreshing. Also, recycling in the food production industry, this was something that was completely new to me because in the US, we produce so much food waste. That is one of our main issues. And I was thinking, when they were talking about making mayonnaise, they said, we only use the yolk for mayonnaise. And my immediate thought was, the egg white, what do you do with it? And before I could even ask the question, they had already presented their solution. They were so forthcoming with all of their ideas on sustainability. And I found it really refreshing that they used all parts of the egg, even down to the egg shell and the egg membrane on the inside. So they use the shell for, they make like charcoal with it, but they also make chalk. And with the egg whites, they send that to other companies so that they can make sweets, which I thought was incredible. And it was so refreshing to have a company almost excited to show you their sustainability improvements and to show their dedication to making the world a better place. So that was my experience as an environmental science major, learning about sustainability in Japan, and I had a fantastic time, and I can't wait to come back to the US and tell all of my environmental science colleagues all that I learned while I was here. Thank you.
So I'd like to tell you something about the language barriers when I faced during this program. So as myself is an international student, both in Canada and Japan, I realized that there's a like communication would not always be easy. At the first, I want to use two of my internship as example. First is like Suzette, and KU Farm, because both of them don't really have much English there. So at the Suzette, we're separated in different two groups. Me and another girl are in the same like factory tour, and another girl and Sensei was in another one. So since we're doing the factory tour, I realized that because my partner, she doesn't know much Japanese, but the staff don't really know English much, so I have to like translate it all the time to make sure she can understand everything. But my Japanese is not that good to like fully translate it for her for everything. So that's the thing I'm start consider like the language barrier. Like even I know the main she wanna say, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense in English. And also for the KU farm, I mean the most sensei there are trying to speak English to us, but still there's some like other stuffs or like the workers there are not really good with English. So a lot of sensei or the Japanese understanding student, they have to be the translator sometimes. So in those both places, we often rely on the bilingual support. That's the thing I'm thinking, like, I realize how much our communication depended on a few bilingual people, and without them, maybe many participants might have felt lost or even excluded. So even like outside from the internship programs, like in our life here recently, I can see like how inconvenient if you don't really know much Japanese, because if you go like a local station or like a local store or something like restaurant, if you don't know much Japanese, it's still hard for you to communicate with the local people. So I think language barrier is a very important like barriers right now in Japan. And also for the Awaji Island, there's another issue is like even we both share the same language, English, we understanding the English, but it doesn't mean we gonna have like easily communication. So I don't know about other groups, but for us, we're doing like Awaji Island problem, and we have like Singapore people from Singapore, Britain, Taiwan, and Canada and America. Yeah, so like we're all speaking like English, but still there's gonna have like struggle to the express ideas. And also it's just hard, like even trying to like express the same idea with English. There's some language barrier with us because different cultural background and the different like vocabulary, grammar are like very different from different languages. So it's just hard to understand each other sometimes. So with even with the shared language, there are limits. So misunderstanding are happens. So clearly require more than just speaking the same words. So that's the thing. I'm also thinking like even the language barrier, like the language barrier are not just the language itself. It also like depends on like your cultural background, the education you have, and also like where you're from, and also your accent. So as for me, I'm not a native speaker for English. So some people, if they do have like a strong accent, that makes me feel like hard to understand them because sometimes I just don't understand. Even I myself, I have accent too. So this is also another problem for like communicating with each other. So what I'm learning from this is like, so even we do have different language barriers, but it's still language is just be a bridge, not a wall. So it should like help people to connect with each other, not just create a distance between them. So what I'm thinking is like when we really do the communication with people from different places, that patience is a essential part of communication. We need to give each other like great time, like enough time to speak, to express themselves, and then listen actively and being like willing to explain things when people don't really know how to express themselves or how to explain that. And also, I want to discover like how effective it is to keep English simple. By using a clear, like straightforward words, we could make it easier for everyone to follow the conversations, no matter like their language level it is, or how about their like local like language. So this is what I learned from this internships. So I believe like people should like help each other when we try to communicate like with others. So communication is like a shared responsibility and effort from both different sides. In that way, we could just make it truly like meaningful. That's what I'm thinking about like from this internships. Thank you.
And then to my part with educating the youth, kind of educating about the issues in this school that's gonna be happening. So what I've learned was this program is technically kind of the epitome of educating about issues in this world. Just has been so we learned so many issues in classrooms by the textbooks, but it's mainly through talking, and that doesn't stick into your mind until you fully see it, touch it, so this program has been very awesome in allowing people to actually see the effects that is going on. So from the QP Mayo factories, you see how research in dietary education could affect. You see what goes on in your food. You see what the proteins, what the nutritions are going on, allowing people to actually know what you're intaking. And then the factory tour shows sorry. And then the factory tours allows you to see the sustainable efforts. While you know climate change, you know sustainability is an issue, but you don't really know what is actually going on in factories. So just having openness and transparency is a great way for educating the youth. And then at Persona and World Expo, that promotion of youth participation, allowing the youth to participate in the changes that is happening, propose ideas. It is a very big step forward because always when things happens and issue occurs, we usually go to the higher ups, but then it's usually the youths that has the ideas, that has the passion to make the changes, but yet we exclude them from all the programs. So having them participate is a very big thing as well. And then while we're not also looking in the future, we're also educating about the traditions and the past, how we can improve on that and keeping the center core and to create that cross-cultural unanimity with big ideas. So the Marianaki and then Kikumatsume are the two biggest ones that showcase that keeping of tradition, but while moving forward, and really just educating how like different ways are impacted by the future of climate change. So yes, they're impacted by the climate change, but they're still keeping to the fore, improving on the taste of food and the nutrition of food by using traditional methods that could help the future generations in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
So in conclusion, we've shown you how much we've learned through this program. And when we were making this presentation, we were thinking, we learned a lot about food because it was sponsored by Shirai Sensei. Thank you so much. But we learned a lot about food, but we also wanted to expand on the issues that we learned about, not just in the food realm, because while you're learning about agriculture, you're also learning about cultural connection and educating the youth and those kinds of things. So we wanted to kind of broaden the scope of what we were discussing today, because this internship presented us so many opportunities for learning new things. Like for example, with myself, I am an environmental science major, but in this internship, I learned a lot about marketing, which I was not expecting to learn about at all. So it was those kind of unexpected opportunities that really made the highest impact to me. Also, in terms of what Sherry was discussing about how communication is two-sided, you both have to put forth your best effort in order to be able to understand each other. So that collective work and that teamwork is what's actually going to drive the future towards global solutions. And that this internship program really solidified that thought in my head. It overall, it was a life-changing experience. It was incredible, and thank you so much to Kobe University for hosting this program and putting so much effort into making sure that the students feel safe and at home, and that we are in an environment where we feel like we can actively learn and participate. It was just so wonderful. So, thank you. 質問がありますか?
Marcus?
So,
Record.
you're almost trying at least bilingual now language. I was wondering, has that learning an additional language or two, has that shifted your perspectives and how you interact with people that might speak one language versus another? And if so, what would that development perspective be?
Just thank you for your question. So I will say yes, definitely. When you speak different languages, your perspective definitely gonna change because different languages have different characteristics when you really speaking them. So if I'm doing like Chinese, that's my mother tongue. So I'll be more confident, and then I know almost like all the slangs and like pop culture right now. So that's the way I can express myself more. But as for English, it's like it's also a way you can express yourself, but because there's a lot of way I don't know how to express, so I'm probably just using the words kind of weird to like native speakers. As for Japanese, you can say it's like your tone probably gonna change when you speak in Japanese, and also the Japanese has a lot of like keigo or like the way how you respect different people. So when you speak in Japanese, you definitely like change more like respectful when you're talking to like different people you met. So I will say it is different, and that kind of changes like you don't even realize you are doing this. It just like naturally changes. Yeah.
Actually, okay, English is my native tongue. I'm working really hard to learn Japanese and I'm very much enjoying it. But that still leaves that barrier in place. And one of the most memorable days in this program for me was when we got to learn Japanese slang from Kobe University students and share with them some English slang as well. That really kind of opened that personality barrier that comes with a language barrier as well. That was like the best day. I really enjoyed learning about that because it was something that we could connect with as youth, and it was just something really special. And so learning how to break those personality barriers as well is very important.
So, we received one question from the UNL, the Megan Sensei. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, it's okay. Okay, the one new question.
All right. This is what
This one.
Yeah.
Dr. Stevens has said. It sounds like you have had deeply enriching cultural experiences. How do you plan to go back to your home campuses to encourage other students to take the leap to go abroad? I have thoughts.
Yeah, I'm gonna translate the question for her real quick.
So my school is
这
very
只是多样化，
engineering
就是你
focused.
达到多
We
样化的
love
那个
science,
就是
we
文化
love
经验。
robots, we love
Oh, wait a minute.
engineering, we love all that stuff. But the thing that I love most about this internship was that we got to be hands-on in nature. And so what I want to bring back to my university is how the Japanese culture of being outside and being connected with nature is so different from the US. in various different aspects. Like I mentioned with etymology, it's very common for Japanese kids to grow up chasing beetles around in the field. And it's also common for temples and shrines to be outside and for nature to be part of that connection to the religious experience. And I really want to show my colleagues at home how nature can be such a inspiration for technological advances as well, because I think that's something that Japan has shown really well while I'm in this internship. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got the design myself.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for a nice presentation. And you guys pointed out, the difficulty in communication. So you found language barrier and also language in just a bridge. So maybe something else is important. And also, Group One pointed out four global issues. To solve these global issues, so we have to, unite. And language is not so enough. What do you think we need? Do you think what we need to solve the global issue in action in the language?
So for me, I personally think you just, as I mentioned, with the slides, it's just like you need more patience when you're communicating with someone whose mother tongue is not the language you guys using to speak with. Another thing is probably like even people don't really understand each other sometimes, like body language and the way how you're expressing yourself is also important. So we can't expect people come here all knowing other language or knowing the English, because a lot of people coming here not just for study or like working, they just for traveling. So maybe if we do like study, probably we need like the level that you have to learn the language, in the country where you go. But if that's just for traveling, maybe like having more the language side there when you having the visitors, or just trying to be more patient and then using more body language to make sure that we can understand each other better. That's my personal thought.
I really love that Sherry mentioned patience because I feel like that's like the most important thing. I also wanted to mention that I think crossing language barriers requires the ability to fail sometimes. You have to be okay with making a mistake. And I think that the Japanese people have been so welcoming and excited to hear my broken Japanese and to hear that I am truly trying to learn their language. And so I think that the ability to make mistakes and recover from them and use them to learn when you're learning languages is also incredibly important.
So much. So let's move on the final presentation.
Egan says, thank you for your question.
Minasan, おはようございます。最後のグループです。カペルと申します。ネブラスカ大学から来ました。専門は
国際ビジネスと日本語の勉強です。まずは、神戸大学の先生、事務と職員にとてもありがとうございます。よろしくお願いいたします。
こんにちは。私はアンニャです。フィリピンの大学から来ました。よろしくお願いします。
こんにちは、ベンと言います。カナダのヒューラン大学から来ました。よろしくお願いします。
今日、私たちのいろいろな日本の経験とインターンシップの経験を学んだことについて発表をすると思います。
All right, so today we've chosen food security as our overarching theme for each of our presentations. I will be speaking about the Mottainai Seishin and its connection to global warming. Kapi will be speaking about Japanese efforts to reach sustainable development goals. And Anna will be speaking about future possible initiatives in agriculture. And then finally, we will write a summary. So one thing for me that really stood out about this internship was the phrase "mottainai seishin." Now, what is this exactly? So it's a set of Japanese cultural values, such as kind of treasuring and caring for that which you have. It's about conscious consumption and minimizing the waste. It's about reducing, reusing, and repurposing when you can. And it's also about going through life being thankful for what you are given. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I think the closest English translation we have would be low waste mentality. So one of the internship companies that I observed this modernization was Kikuma Samane sake brewery. So here, I was really, it was just a one-day internship, but I was so intrigued by the way that so lactic acid is produced as a byproduct of sake fermentation. And the brewery's research and development team found a way to take this lactic acid byproduct and repurpose it to make skincare, which is now sold in Japan. I thought it was such a creative solution to having a product that would normally just go to waste. And it made me think about what in the world that we think of as trash or waste can actually be repurposed and reused and turned into something useful. Well, unfortunately, the demerit of going third is that my wonderful classmate Emily basically already told you everything you need to know about this slide in a very thorough manner. So I will be repeating most of these information. But another company where I observed the modernization was the Kobe Kimchi factory. So when we were making mayonnaise, they very specifically told us they only use the egg yolk, so the yellow part of the egg, in their mayonnaise. However, the other parts of the egg, such as the egg shell and the egg whites, are all repurposed and reused. So the egg shell, it can be ground into a sodium bicarbonate powder and used to make chalk, such as writing on the chalk used in school to write on boards, or the chalk used to line sports fields. It can also be used in pharmaceuticals such as calcium supplements and stomach medicine. And then the egg whites are used, sent off to other companies, made into cakes, and yeah, very just nothing goes to waste, and I was really moved by that.